Threat to public safety. I hereby declare this an unlawful assembly. You are in violation of Minnesota State Statute 609.705, unlawful assembly. I am now issuing a public safety order to disperse and order all those assembled in front of the residence inn to disperse immediately and cease your unlawful behavior, which means leave the area peacefully. If you do not do so, you may be subject to arrest or subject to other police action. Other police action could include the use of chemical agents and the use of less lethal devices and or crowd control tactics, which may inflict significant pain or result in serious injury. The following routes of dispersal are available. Please leave to the south or the southeast towards Hemlock Lane. You have 3 minutes to disperse. If you continue to obstruct.
All right, I've got it fixed now. 2 times, right? 2 times today, and thank you guys for telling me. If you guys didn't tell me I didn't have sound, I would never know. I Sorry about that. That's a totally different issue than I had yesterday. All my technical things are done. That's just my user error. I unplugged my microphone overnight and I didn't, I guess, power it back on. So I'll start over for the third time. And then we'll get it right. what what I was saying is that these people are vile animals. The people you saw outside of the Spring Hill Hotel, they're vile animals. They're mentally ill. That's what they are. They're mentally ill. We're going to be talking about mental illness this morning because if you're a moron and you're standing outside of a Spring Hill Suites hotel because you think Commander Greg Bovino is inside the hotel. So you're going to yell obscenities at the top of your lungs and you're going to use a megaphone and continue to say, F you. Nobody cares. Do you think anyone really cares? You're risking your life doing this because you are going to be detained. And, finally, Governor Tim Walz and Mayor Frey have had enough with this behavior. Now, they're still letting a lot of other things going on. I think most of the protests in Minneapolis are going to wind down at this point. ICE is going to start withdrawing, I believe, today. And it's unfortunate, but that's a big win That's a big win, isn't it, for these violent, vile animals, these paid agitators. And yeah, Brandon, I said it 3 times, right? Finally, you guys heard me on the third time. Good morning, Rob, and good morning, Caddy. Gosh, it's gonna be one of those days. Good morning, Patty, Karen, Michael, all of you guys. Will Oh, well, thank you, King. I appreciate that because I don't care what you mentally ill, deranged, vile animals have to say. Good thing, right? We're going to be talking a lot about mental illness today. We're probably going to see a lot of mental illness in the comments today, and I can't do anything about that till after the show. But I just want everyone to know that anybody who makes vile comments in the comment section, just ignore them. There's nothing anyone there can say to bother me, so it doesn't really matter. Their insults are completely useless on me because I don't care because I know they're mentally ill. They can't help how they feel and how they act. And that's the same as these people outside of the Spring Hill Suites. Absolutely vile animals, mentally ill. We're going to show a lot of these mentally ill folks today. Somebody said it in the comments yesterday, and I feel like we need to run with it. And that is, we need to open the institutions. We do. We need to open the institutions. And I feel that Donald Trump and the Trump administration have laid the groundwork for this because, in the past, it's been very difficult if you know somebody who's mentally ill, a family member, let's say a stranger on the streets, and they're mentally ill and they are vulnerable. They're potentially at risk for being harmed because of their vulnerability, or perhaps they're a drug addict and they're not doing anything to seek help. Donald Trump is attempting to change the law. We have legislation currently in the works to where you can actually commit somebody to a mental health institution against their will, against their will. If you talk to anybody who knows some of these mentally ill people on the left, and trust me, there are so many of them, these mentally ill people on the left, they think that they're in the right, that they can go out to these violent protests and that they can scream and yell and assault ICE officers and border patrol. But you know what? We're working on a program. We really are. We're working on a program. So hey, fear not. We are going to be adding you to the mentally ill list, and you guys are going to be held against your will. I personally, I think it's kind of funny. And speaking of that, we're going to talk a little bit about mental illness today because we're just seeing it. It's just rampant. I'm going to show you a mentally ill person right now. Now, this guy is talking to Jake Tapper. Good morning, Phyllis. This guy is talking to Jake Tapper, and you can see the mental illness in full sway. It's pretty darn funny. This guy actually thinks that he's going to be put in an oven, that we're the Gestapo. Now, we all know these paid agitators are the true fascists, but I think it's pretty funny. This guy thinks that we're gonna put him in ovens. That's where we're going. This is the definition of mental illness right here. And even Jake Tapper knows it. The look on his face is priceless.
I understand that, but they take people to Fort Snelling here, which literally was built as a concentration camp, and Alligator Alcatraz, which I think we can all agree is a concentration camp. Not saying they're Dachau. I'm not saying they're putting people in ovens yet, but these are concentration camps.
Okay.
I don't need to argue with you.
I mean, come on. I'm going to play that again just because it's so funny. We just got to hear that one again. Let's see.
I understand that, but they take people to Fort Snelling here, which literally was built as a concentration camp, and Alligator Alcatraz, which I think we can all agree is a concentration camp. Not saying they're Dachau. I'm not saying they're putting people in ovens yet, but these are concentration camps.
Okay.
I don't need to argue with you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop this right here for a minute. Okay, here we got this guy in this pink hat, surely part of the trans power movement. I'm gonna have to, and King, I'm gonna block you here for just a moment. But King, I hate to tell you, but I am actually self-employed. So my HR, I would love for you to call my HR because I'll pick up the phone. I'm self-employed. I own my own business. How about that? So do your best, but it's not going to get very far. And blocked you will be. And so people just crack me up. Anyway, This guy in his pink hat, there he is. This is a definition of mental illness. And you know what? Speaking of mental illness, here's another mentally ill person. Now, this is what we're dealing with. Now, they're at war, okay? We're not at war. They're at war. And they think this is what mental illness does to people is mental illness. It makes these people think that we want to put them in ovens. No wonder they're running around the streets acting crazy because they are mentally ill. They think we want to put them in ovens. They think we want to, that this is the next Holocaust against these vile creatures, on the far right left. Now, I want to make sure it's very clear that I'm not talking about Democrats and I'm not talking about all liberals. I have plenty of Democrat friends, plenty of liberal friends, but they don't act like these Looney Tunes. And they're not out in front of a Spring Hill Suites violently protesting. They're not the people that get pulled over and insult police officers. And we're going to talk about that too, what police officers deal with on a daily basis from these freaking lunatics on the far fringe left. These people have lost their minds. And I do think we need new health reform. That's the only way to deal with this because, we're going to talk about how to deal with it in a moment. And let's see, Patty says, Walsh mentioned Anne Frank. The Jewish Memorial said to Walsh, knock it off. Patty, I know I talked about that yesterday. I played the video of him saying that. And and it's so funny because here we have the governor of Minnesota, an actual governor. Now, of course, we know he's only governor because he allowed the fraud to continue. And trust me, he's going to be held accountable at some point. These protests in Minneapolis are going to die down. And then we're going to have to deal with the real truth, or I should say, he's going to have to deal with the real truth. It's coming. It's coming. Don't think it's not coming. So let's see here. Here's another mentally ill person on the far fringe left.
See, I've been fully activated. I'm going to head back east. We need to go to D.C. Shit needs to get done. Here's the thing that I need for protesters and everyone to start realizing, okay? We're at war. The protests are over. There's no more protesting. This is combat now. So when I come onto the field, I'm not screaming at people that are going to assault me or pepper spray me. No, this is combat. I'm going to engage them in combat because we have shit that needs to be done. This is how we get shit done. Okay? We're not protesting anymore. We're fighting. You understand? I need for you to stop with the signs. And I need for you to get shields and swords of the pew-pew kind. I need for you to wake the fuck up. We're at war. It's wartime. It's time to go to war. You know how your military father or your military friends were always telling you freedom isn't free? You're about to find out. You're about to get it. So figure it fucking out. Stop protesting. It's fight time. Okay? I'll see you there.
Fight time with who? Who's in a war? So this guy's in combat. That's how he views himself. That's how a lot of these people, they view themselves as they're in combat. They're in a war. A war against who? Do you feel like you're in a war? I'm not in a war. I'm not at combat. These people are at combat literally against their own mental health. It's all a figment of their imagination. And here's why it's so important. I know what Kash Patel has stated, that they're doing research every single day. They're investigating who is funding these protests. Now, I think we all know who's funding these violent agitators. But at the same time, when are we going to have that accountability? Because, it's a vicious cycle. And quite honestly, these people are being taken advantage of because they are mentally ill. And because when you're mentally ill, your mind is weak. And what's happening is it's a vicious cycle where these people, trust me, they know, if you want to call them the cabal or the shadow government, whoever, you want, Obama, if you want to call him Obama, if you want to call them the Clintons or George Soros, whatever you prefer, terms you prefer to use. But these folks know that these people are vulnerable. They know that they're already on the edge that these people are ready to implode at any moment. And it's not because of conservatives, it's not because of police, it's because they have lived a really difficult life. You know, we talked about this a little bit yesterday with Colonel Joe Adams. These people, a lot of what makes up Antifa is that Antifa is made up of a group of people who saw themselves as misfits, people who they thought didn't feel like they belonged to society, people who had an identity crisis for not just transgender reasons, but for a lot of different reasons. And I'm not saying every person who's a loner, every person who is bullied, every person who has identity issues ends up being violent and an Antifa member, but the folks who are in Antifa, that's what it's compromised of. And something that I didn't mention yesterday when we were talking to Colonel Joe Adams, and he would probably recall this, but many years ago, I can't remember, I was on a radio show somewhere, I don't remember which station, I've been on a few, and I remember talking at the time. At that time, I knew very little about Ukraine. I knew what a Ukrainian businessman was, but I knew very, very little about Ukraine. And I remember talking at that time about reading an FBI report that talked about Ukrainians training Americans to combat in the streets. And at the time, I kept thinking, well, who in the world are they going to go to combat against? And who is it that they're training? And at the time, I didn't understand what Antifa was because this was long before any of this stuff started. And I remember those reports where they had Ukrainians coming. And remember the Azov battalion? The Azov battalion in Ukraine, they're the ones who wear the swastikas. They're the ones who are skinheads. And they were these people from the Azov battalion were coming into the United States and they were training these paramilitary groups in the United States to be very violent. They were training them in combat tactics. And this was a long time ago. And I remember thinking, at the time, I just didn't get it. I'm like, well, who are these people? Who are the Azovs? I didn't know a lot about Ukraine, didn't know who they were training and why. Now I see this has been a plan in the works for a very long time, a very long time. And the goal is to cause instability and to cause chaos. And that instability and that chaos, that doesn't benefit us. It doesn't benefit Donald Trump. It doesn't benefit, our country, certainly not our safety or security. But who does it benefit, right? Who does it benefit? It benefits the people like Soros or Obama or Hillary Clinton, people who belong to the Democrat regime, because it allows them to stay in power. The more mentally ill, unstable people that we have in this country, the more voters they have. And so, of course, they're going to do everything they can to create more instability and more mental illness. And they're taking advantage of the weakest in our society. And that's going to be people like Antifa. It's going to be these people on the far fringe left. And these people they're mentally ill. We see it. We see these videos. We know who they are. We know what the situation is. And let's see, Patty says we should remind them that elected officials, military, etc., took an oath to protect America from foreign and domestic enemies. Get out of their way. That's right. That is right. And let's see, Sherry, there's a lot of comments here, just making my way through. And yeah, Diana, that's what people do on the left. They do liberals always resort to insults. That's why it doesn't bother me, because I know they're just mentally ill. And Tyler, details and the truth matter. Yes, they do. That's why I'm here and I'm talking about the truth, because you know what? I don't get paid for this show. I make not one penny on this show, not one single penny. I am here to do nothing but speak the truth, whether you like it or you don't. And let's see, Robert, you're unstable, voting for a man who walks around grabbing the peas and raping kids. Now, Robert, I'm going to remind you and all your mentally ill leftist friends that Donald Trump has never once been charged or convicted of raping children or adults or anyone else. Not even once, believe it or not. Not even one time. But guess who has? Yeah, I'm sure you guys can figure that one out. And speaking of, let's see here, Donald Trump, I don't always agree with everything Donald Trump does, but I will tell you one thing, that Donald Trump is the best president this country has ever had. I don't agree with everything he does, that's for sure. But I know he's playing a game of chess, right? And we're not going to like everything he does. But I will tell you what, in the end of the day, he is the best president we've ever had. And thank you, Karen. And if you guys see if I'm blocking people as I talk, so uh, thankfully my system allows me to do that. I just got to be careful. I don't want to block the wrong person. Because some of these people are, I don't know where they've all come from today, and quite honestly, it doesn't matter because I've got a very nice blocking feature here to take care of. Now, here's what you become a law enforcement officer. Well, what do you think you deal with on a daily basis? Now, even in a non-protest situation, these people are still out there. Now, they're looking for a reason to protest, but they're still out there. And I'm going to show you an example of one of these people. And just think, if you're a law enforcement officer, it doesn't matter whether you're federal or whether you're local in your own community, you're still dealing with mental illness every single day. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like mental illness is either more people are showing it because they feel more comfortable doing so. Maybe people aren't taking the medication they're supposed to take. I'm not really sure. But I think that if you talk to any law enforcement officer, they're going to tell you that mental illness is running rampant in this country. And I'm going to show you a perfect example of that right here. An officer pulls someone over because this woman had an accident in the snow, whether it was her fault or not. I don't know. I didn't see the video leading up to this interaction with the police officer, but he's simply trying to write her a ticket. Now, how many times a day do you think police officers go through this? I'm going to show you another clear-cut example of mental illness.
Here's the court number.
I'm not touching that ticket that you're illegally issuing me. You weren't even here to assess the crash, yet you trying to tell me that I gotta have a ticket.
Look at your car.
I don't give a fuck what you talking about. Don't touch me.
If you
Don't
want, we can
fucking
ask
touch
how your
me.
Sterling Heights
Don't
warrants.
fucking touch me. Go ask. Cause the bitches is paid. Go ask. They wouldn't even issue me a new license. You see them tickets on there?
You're
Don't
getting a
fucking
ticket.
touch me. No, I'm not. No, the fuck I'm not. Cause I was not
It's in
speeding.
the system. So
That is ice.
Well,
All of this is ice. If
Yeah.
I stop my car,
So
I
you-
still would have slid.
the ticket says too
Are
fast
you
for
serious?
conditions.
Bitch,
It says
get the fuck out my
conditions.
face.
It
Get
says
the fuck
conditions.
out my face.
You're the
Get
one-
the
you're
fuck
approaching us
out my
here.
face. Get the fuck
Officer
out my
Burton,
face.
is there
Away
any-
from my car. Get the fuck on.
So I'm gonna
Get the
verbally-
fuck
you-
on.
I'm gonna verbally
Get the
serve you
fuck
this ticket.
on.
So 26800641, Miss Derjanae Clark, you're being
You're not giving me
formally
shit.
notice of driving.
I can't hear you.
For conditions.
I can't hear you.
I can't even listen to that anymore. That's called mental illness. Some people want to say, oh, they're just a little sassy. No, they're not sassy. They are mentally ill. If a police officer pulls you over and they give you a ticket, even if you think you don't deserve it, and you react in this way, you are mentally ill. Your mental illness is showing. You need to seek therapy and take some medication to calm yourself down. Mental illness is running rampant in this country, and we have to be able to deal with the mental illness that's taking place. And no, that doesn't mean putting people in ovens. It certainly doesn't. It doesn't mean putting people in a mental institution and keeping them forever. But the mental health community, it's a very tricky situation, very sticky situation, of course, because how do we've seen it time and time again. That's a lot of the folks that we see out on the streets. Their family will seek help. They'll get them into an institution for, a 72-hour hold. Then they get released. And sometimes you'll have people who are committed for a certain period of time. They start taking medication, they get better, and then they're released. And guess what? They feel better. So they think, oh, I don't need this medication. They stop taking their medication. And then guess what? They're out there yelling at police officers again or protesting outside of a Spring Hill Suites hotel. And whether you agree or whether you don't agree, I will tell you one thing, and that is mental illness is rampant. All of the people you see out at these protests fighting with ICE, I'm not talking about the peaceful protesters. I'm not talking about the people who were just there to protest. Good for them. More power to them. If they don't like Donald Trump, they don't like the Trump administration, if they don't like what ICE is doing or Border Patrol is doing, if they don't support deportations, and they want to go out and they want to peacefully protest, more power to them. That's what a republic is all about. Go out, peacefully protest every single day if your heart desires. But the minute you start obstructing federal enforcement officers, the minute you start going to hotels and vandalizing hotels, breaking the windows down, yelling ridiculous obscenities up to the hotel rooms, that is called mental illness. And I know we have a lot of those mentally ill people on the feed today. And so that's exactly what mental illness does. And here's another one, Barry. Now, Barry, I'm not going to block you because I'm going to save your comments so I can turn those into Secret Service. I'm going to block all the other people, but I'm going to leave you. Cody, Barry Allen says, ICE supporters, children should be murdered. Oh my goodness, mental illness, alive and well. And Barry, I thank you for joining the show today. As a matter of fact, all of you, anyone who's joined the show today, if you're one of the mentally ill people, I appreciate your comments because you're just proving our point that mental illness is real. Now, what do we do about mental illness is a whole nother story. You know, are we going to go to protests and round people up and give them a psychological evaluation? Maybe, you know, maybe that's not such a bad idea. Then if they're mentally ill, of course, if they are truly mentally ill, then perhaps under this new legislation, they can be held and treated and eventually released once, you know, they've proven that they've sought and have received the help that they need. You know, those are certainly some options. But in this country, in order for us to move forward with our national security, with the security in our own community, we have to do something about this rampant mental illness. Now, what that is, I don't know, but we've got quite a few of them here. Barry says, "Good for you. I pray you turn them." Oh my goodness, Barry, mental illness for sure. But lots of other stuff to talk about today too. You know what? You know, speaking of mental illness, I think it's kind of funny. Oh, and Mary says, hopefully, the institutions are coming back for them. The mentally ill. Oh, they will. They will. And I'll tell you what. Even Governor Walz and Mayor Frey, we have to remember what's really at heart here. Is this really about deportations? Is it really about protecting the citizens of Minneapolis or Minnesota? We know it's not. We know the number one reason all of this is happening is, you know what, the reason why Donald Trump says central casting so many times, it is because it's all theater. It's all a put on. It's all theater. You know, again, we have these individuals who are paying a lot of these people to come out. They're certainly not all paid. A lot of them are paid. And then the people who are paid, guess what they do? They're the ones that prey upon the mentally ill and get them to join in, you know, in the fray and in the violence. And the mentally ill people are usually the ones who do get pulled in and lured in because they're weak-minded. And then what happens is they're the ones who obstruct police officers. They're doing what they're ordered to do. They're the ones who end up in these situations like Alex Pretti or Renee Good, where they're listening to instructions by the paid agitators, and they're the ones putting their lives on the line. So really, in a way, they're victims in that degree. They're victims of their own mental illness. It's really unfortunate. And yes, Cody, it is absolutely because of the $1 billion fraud. And it's not just happening in Minnesota, it's happening all across the country. And so at some point, we are going to see more investigations. We're going to see more happen. And I don't know if we're going to see accountability. I don't know if we're going to see arrests, but we are going to see more happen. But in the meantime, Governor Walz, Mayor Frey, their only purpose is to distract from the fraud that's taking place in their city. That's it. Now, the only reason why they finally have ordered Minneapolis police to go to these hotels is because it's so obvious. Whenever these mentally ill leftists show up at these hotels and they start tearing these hotels apart, they've got to do something, right? They've got to do something. They've at least got to protect the business owners that live in their city. And I think that's where their line is drawn. But one thing, let's see, Mary says, no distraction from their fraud. And of course they hate Trump. Of course they hate Trump. And let's see, I've got enough. I'm going to block Barry now because I can still save his comments and block him because I know he's probably annoying all of you on the feed. Oh, that's okay, Sherry. If he'll have a thing coming to him if he attempts to harm me in any way, then he will have another thing coming. Let's see here. Yeah, mentally ill for sure. There's a lot of mentally ill folks out there. And Sherry, we see it every day, don't we? Every single day. And so anyway, a lot of distraction on the comment line today. I'm doing my best to block people and save all of these crazy things they're saying because they're going to be the first to hit the institutions most likely. And thank you, Kim, for reporting him. He is Absolutely a lunatic. Absolutely a lunatic. And thank you, Sherry, for taking screenshots. I've got the comments saved, but Sherry, if you have screenshots, definitely send them to me just in case my saving doesn't work. But either way, that's what we can expect is lunacy, lunacy, lunacy coming from the left. Not all leftists, just the ones that are mentally ill. But this is also why we know it's not about deportations. Because guess who deported really up until Donald Trump more people than any other president? That would be Obama. And there were a number of people who did die in ICE custody during Obama's term. And guess what? That didn't stop. It didn't stop Obama from enforcing deportations. We'll play a quick video from Obama here.
I'm the president of the United States. I'm not the emperor of the United States. My job is to execute laws that are passed. And Congress right now has not changed what I consider to be a broken immigration system. Mm-hmm. And what that means is that we have certain obligations to enforce the laws that are in place, even if we think that in many cases the results may be tragic. There are going to be some stories that break our hearts. And more importantly, we're going to continue to have an economy that is stifled by a really inefficient system where not only are we deporting folks, but we also have a legal immigration system that is so bottlenecked that it forces sometimes people into the illegal.
Right. Listen to Obama. Now, seriously, remember when Obama was president and when he was deporting all these people, when he was keeping kids in cages, well, guess what? I don't remember there being protests. I don't remember there being violence in the streets. I don't remember anyone saying anything. Quite honestly, I don't remember a single word out of anyone. Because you know why? Because people, excuse me, people were not being paid to go out and protest. They weren't being paid to go out and protest. That's the difference, is that Obama is, I would say, the leader of the shadow government. And of course, and Kevin says Barry Soroto. I never can say that name right. And I want to go up and address, whoops. If I start messing with my comments too much, I won't be able to go up all the time. For some reason, my laptop does not like, all right. Well, somebody said a comment about Donald Trump pardoning a crypto person. And like I said, I'm going to say it. I'll say it again. I don't like everything Donald Trump does. I don't always agree with pardons from any president, Donald Trump or not. I don't always agree with pardons. And there are, of course, people who are going to be pardoned by a president that I don't like. I just said I don't like everything Donald Trump does. But it doesn't matter. He's still the best president we've ever had. I don't like the fact that ICE is going to start withdrawing today from Minnesota. I don't like it at all. I don't like that Gregory Bovino, who I do like and greatly admire, is no longer going to be calling the shots. And I feel like, just like I said yesterday with Colonel Joe Adams on the show, I feel like that's a big slap in the face to all of us and to our law enforcement and the people who protect us daily. Because violence, in the end, it does win. And I hate to say that, but it does win. Because what happens, and we learned during the Michael Brown riots, we learned this during the George Floyd riots, and I'm having the same conversation I'm having now that I had back then, that violence does win. Of course, Donald Trump is trying to work out a plan diplomatically with Governor Walz. He has sent Tom Homan out to Minneapolis to talk it over. Homan's going to be calling the shots. Now, yesterday, it was reported through a lot of different media organizations that Gregory Bovino was out, that he's out. And that's not 100% true. He's not going to be calling the shots. He's not out of a job. He's not fired. He's still going to be involved, with these federal deportations. He's just not going to be the man calling the shots. And I like, we've all seen this happen so many times. This is a PR move. That's all it is. It's a PR move. It's trying to quell the loudest people who they're saying, well, the DHS, they're violating people's rights. ICE is violating people's rights. Border Patrol is violating people's rights. Okay, so then the Trump administration says, well, we're gonna change leadership. We're gonna put Tom Homan in charge, and we're gonna take Gregory Bovino out. Now, personally, I think that's the wrong move. Now, what I think happened is that I know this, some of you may not be happy that I'm saying this, but I think that what happened is that they reviewed the body cam footage of all the officers there. I don't know if all of those Border Patrol officers had their body cameras on, but I do know the majority of them did. And I think when they went back and they looked at that body cam footage, that it just did not look good. I think if it did look good, it would have been released already. Now, I'm still going to say this was a justified shooting. We still have Alex Pretti, who came out. There's a lot of information out there that he was radicalized. He did belong to these groups that docs ICE and other federal agents. He did belong to these groups that report where ICE is going to be. He was part of going out and obstructing, attempting to create a roadblock to impede, federal agents. So he's certainly not an innocent person. And in order for him to carry his weapon, I don't care what you say, he was carrying his weapon illegally that day. I don't care who you are or where you're at. If you have a concealed carry permit, you actually have to carry it on your person. You have to have ID on your person. If you have a weapon with you, you have to have ID and you have to have that concealed carry permit, neither of which he had. He didn't have anything on him, on his person, nothing. All he had was his weapon and the 2 clips. So that there is a violation. And when you impede officers, that's a violation. When the officers were trying to, yesterday we went through the play-by-play video, when the officers were trying to detain, the 1 or 2 women that he was with, he should have walked away and let it go. And I understand people want to say, well, he was protecting them. You can't protect people against law enforcement. It doesn't matter whether it's an everyday call that officers are responding to. We've all seen the videos. Thank God I've never been in the situation myself. But if you're at a call and you have somebody impeding their investigation, guess what? They're going to detain you and they're going to arrest you. You just have to walk away whether you want to or you don't. That's how you survive, or that's how you avoid arrest. Whether people like it or not, that is the way it is. I love it how people like to call me fat, because I'll tell you what, first of all, I'm not fat. And second of all, your insults don't bother me at all. It don't bother me at all. And let's see, Liam, you know the law. And but yeah, Barry has been blocked. We saved his comments and did. And Liam, you must not know the law as well as I do, so we will block you too. And I could spend all day blocking people, but I don't have time to do all that. And let's see here. Cody says it's a fake account and he can report her for not blocking that language on here. I don't know what you mean, Cody. I'm trying to block people as much as I possibly can, but I'm talking, so I can't block everybody at the same time. And you guys are welcome to report them, but it doesn't really matter. Either way, I will do my best to block them. And you know what, Joey? I've been called bootlicker so many times lately, and I will tell you what, I absolutely love that. If you want to call me a bootlicker, that's perfectly fine, because you know what? I love those hot, sweaty police boots. I really do. I am a big fan of police officers. I've dated many in my time, and I am not at all ashamed to say it. Not at all ashamed to say it. All right, so we're going to ignore these people. If you see them, you can report them. I'll do my best to block them when I can. And Cody, you'll have to explain. I don't know what you're talking about. And so either way, let's move on and get past all the weirdos. Again, I'm not paid for this show. I'm just here to talk some truth. I don't make 1 penny on Facebook. Why do I not make 1 penny on Facebook? Because I have violated their community standards more times than I can possibly tell you. And good morning, Jay Van Brown. And good morning, Colonel Joe Adams, joining us this morning. And Colonel Joe Adams, I told him the other day, he's welcome to join us on the show at any time, anytime. So Colonel Joe Adams, what you missed is we're showing some lunatics on the left. Now I'm going to show you another video while we're talking about mental illness and before we move on to some things. Here's another guy. Now this guy, he wants officers to shoot him. Pure definition of mental illness. Let's take a look at this.
Shoot us in the fucking face! Shoot me in the fucking head! Why don't you fucking shoot me in the fucking head? You coward! You're fucking cowards! I'm right here! Fucking kill me!
I mean, come on. They want to go out and protest when somebody does get killed, and then you have this guy telling them to kill him. Now that's mental illness if I ever saw it. And really what I wish that ICE had and the Border Patrol, I wish that when they went out, and maybe this is kind of what we were talking about yesterday with Colonel Joe Adams, is that maybe we need a better team, a support team to go out with ICE and Border Patrol. Do you remember when they had this big deal back after, I think it was after George Floyd or Michael Brown, I can't remember which one, but they had this team that was going to go out with police officers. You remember that? Social workers, they were sending social workers out with police officers and to counter mental illness and that type of thing. I really do think that ICE and Border Patrol, they need to have their own team of social workers that go out with them. Then when they see people like this guy, they can pull this guy aside and they say, hey, man, I really think you need to seek some mental health therapy. You need some medication. Go home, or we're going to involuntarily take you and place you into a mental health institution until you can get some help, because that person is not stable. That person does not belong out in the streets. They don't. So I'm sorry to say, they absolutely do not. And oh man, I love all the comments. And let's see here. What did you say, Kim? Let's see here. Oh, Kim says, you are here. Clearly, you are hitting a nerve. Hence why the garbage is invading your podcast feed. Yeah. And that's okay. Like I said, nothing they say bothers me. I actually think it's funny. What I think is even funnier is that we're talking about mental illness. And I never planned on the far fringe left to be on my feed today, because honestly, if you've never watched the show, they've never been here before. This is a first for my show. And when people come out and they insult me and they call me a fat bee or tell me to go eat some cookies or some cake, I don't care. I'm not fat. and it doesn't matter to me what they think either way. I honestly could care less. And really, it just proves a point that mental illness is rampant in this country. And I have a very thick skin, and it goes maybe with my thick body, if you want to ask one of them, and it doesn't bother me. So any of you who listen to the show regularly, and Sherry, don't let it bother you. When they insult me, it really doesn't matter to me. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all. I will not leave the show and feel any differently than I do any other day. It makes no difference to me whatsoever. I own a security company. I deal with mental illness on a regular basis. I deal with insults, crazy people all the time. It doesn't matter to me. So if they bother you, you're welcome to report them, but just so you know, they don't bother me. If anything, it just goes to show that, guess what? Mental illness is rampant. Just like we're talking about, mentally ill people are everywhere. And I don't understand. On this show, we talk a lot about food and different things and medications. And I really do wonder, we should have a whole separate show on that. What is leading to all of this mental illness? We years ago, when we first started seeing some of the rampant, upstaging of the mental illness, we talked about, is it the milk? Is it the antibiotics in the milk? Is it the hormones they're putting in the milk or dairy products? Is it something they're injecting? It has to come, I would think, from a food source, don't you? There's something going on. Now we could say it's indoctrination in various schools. Well, that's a good possibility, because we all know a lot of different liberal colleges. We know some portions of the public school system. I went to public school, now when I was younger and I went to public school, it was not like what it is now. Our teachers, we had no idea what their affiliation was. We didn't know if she was a he, a her, a they, them, and nor did it matter. Those were things we didn't talk about. We didn't care about. We didn't know. Some of my teachers who I'm still friends with, on Facebook, now that we have social media. Of course, we didn't back then. And I had no idea. I mean, some of them might talk about being married, but for the most part, you had no idea if they were married, if they had kids. And that's how it should be. You shouldn't know your teacher's political affiliation. You shouldn't know their status. Well, I've said it before. I actually support the gay community. I do. And I think people should be able to live any way they want to live. If you want to be trans and you're just living your life, you know what? Go for it. Go for it. I have a trans niece and I have a trans nephew, and why and what's interesting is I only have a couple nieces and nephews, but the reason why I believe it, and they trust me, they absolutely hate Donald Trump. They hate politics. They don't even really talk to me, quite honestly. And I think the reason why that they're trans, just like all these other young people, it's not necessarily that trans is bad. It's that there are certain people within the trans group that feel empowered to where if we don't accept them, and here's the thing, some of them will never be accepted in the way they want to be accepted. And it's not because we don't accept them. It's not because we we're telling them to be different than what they are. It is because in their mind, there's a certain level of acceptance that they're looking for that they're just never going to get. And because of that, they're angry. And I don't think they'll be happy unless we're all trans and we're all, confused on our gender. I don't think they'll ever be happy until that happens. And so we've got these groups like Trans Power, and Trans Power is a real group. And these people are going around, and of course, not all trans people are part of Trans Power. Believe it or not, there are trans people who listen to the show. There's people from the LGBTQ community who listen to the show who are conservatives, who voted for Donald Trump, and who support ICE and deportations. So we're talking about the people who are trans who are also mentally ill. That's the difference. There are trans people who are not mentally ill, trans people who are mentally ill, just like there's your average community members who are or are not mentally ill. It's a real problem, that's for sure. And let's see here. And John, anyone who supports politics is absolutely retarded slaves. John, in a way, I actually agree with you. I've said a lot of you people are new to the show, and I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I am actually anti-government, and I do not support politics in general. We talk about politics because it's what fuels our daily lives these days. And I am certainly not a liberal. I am absolutely a conservative Christian constitutionalist. But I believe that we have the Democrat Party, we have the Republican Party. They're private organizations. And you know what they're doing? They're making money off of all of us. If you have a job and you pay taxes, guess what? They're making money off of you. And we see how the cycle works. You're going to work every day, trying to provide for yourself, your family, pay for your vehicle or your apartment or whatever your situation might be. And you're paying in all these taxes, 73 cents per dollar in taxes? Not just straight out of your paycheck, but once you get your paycheck, of course, they're taking those taxes out. You're buying groceries, they're taking more taxes. You buy gas, they make more taxes. You go see a hockey game, guess what? They're going to take more taxes, tax. And what they're doing is they're taking those tax dollars and they're rolling them into these different NGOs. And it's not just Democrats doing it. It's Republicans too. It's both sides. If it were up to me, I would completely wipe out the Republican Party and the Democrat Party. And by wiping out, I just mean wipe the slate clean, start all over again, get different branches of government. The DNC and the RNC are private organizations. Voting your vote, I've always said your vote does not matter. It really doesn't matter. It's elected, right? It's selected, not elected, right? Selected, not elected. And we know that because Bernie Sanders won the primary against Hillary Clinton. He absolutely did. He got more votes in the primary. And guess what? The DNC selected Hillary Clinton because that's who they wanted in charge. And why? Because Bernie Sanders probably, I'm not a Bernie supporter, but I don't think Bernie would have put up with all the fraud that's going on. Hillary Clinton, right in the middle of it. And so I think that's why the DNC selected Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders. And, I don't want Bernie Sanders as a president, but in some degrees, I think he'd be better than a Hillary Clinton. And then we have Donald Trump, and I'm not going to get into how that was. That was an uprising of our own. We as conservatives, our uprising isn't going out into the street. We're not part of this combat, this war that a lot of leftists, think they're in. That's just not us. We're living our lives and working. I don't feel like I'm in a war. I don't feel like I'm in combat. And some of the people who've come on the show threaten me. Now, if they come to my home or anywhere I am, then they're going to find out exactly what a war or combat is. Cody says, trans is bad unless born that way. When it's a choice, let's see, demons are the only gender less intelligent beings. Margie says, truth. Oh, Blue, well, I am heterosexual. So if you want to say that, I'm not gay. And I am a female. So I guess we could go down that road. Jamal, wait, you can't say you for the people when the flag behind you stands for racism and exclusion. Well, Jamal, the flag behind me does not stand for racism or exclusion. I certainly am certainly not racist. As a matter of fact, I don't think most conservatives are racist. I think we're called racist all the time, but I think that's propaganda. Both the Republican Party and the Democrat Party have used propaganda against the people. We're all pawns to some degree. And they want you to believe that this flag stands for racism. They want you to hate me because I support America. They want you to hate me, and they want me to hate you also. That's just it. They want me to hate you. I think it's kind of funny because, there are people on their keyboards, and I'm not talking about you, Jamal, but there's a lot of people on their keyboards who talk an awful lot about racism, don't they? Oh, black people are so bad. White people are so bad. We all just hate each other. We're in this race war. But then you go to the grocery store or your doctor's office or wherever you might be, and you're there in a room full of people of the opposite color of yourself. And guess what? Everybody's friendly, aren't they? Oh, we all hate each other. There's so much tension between black and whites and Hispanics and so on. And then I'm standing in line at the grocery store checking out, and I've got a black and Hispanic person right next to me. And guess what? We're all talking, having a good old time, talking about the weather, talking about this or that, because none of us are racist. Now, prejudice and racism are two different things. There are a lot of people who do carry different prejudices. There are people who will say, well, I'm not going to date or have a relationship with somebody of a different color than myself or a different, nationality than myself. That's prejudice. That's different than racism. I can guarantee you the American flag absolutely does not stand for racism. You can say that all you want, but the fact is we, the conservatives, are the people who fought against racism. And quite honestly, it's Democrats, the Democrat regime right now, who's fighting for segregation. They want to reinstill segregation. That's not us, the conservatives. As a matter of fact, all the conservatives I know, we all talk about different things. And one of the things, and as a matter of fact, and some of them are people of different colors, different nationalities. And we all laugh and we say, man, do you feel like we hate each other? And the answer is no. Of course we don't. But that's what the government wants you to think. That's how the government feeds, and that's how they create you as being a pawn. And they want you that. They want chaos. They want instability. What they want from you, and that's Jamal, any of you, I don't care how crazy you are, not you, Jamal, but some other people, it doesn't really matter. But the fact, let's see here, Jamal says, I can understand your stance, but the flag is not one of the people if we're talking about unity. Jamal, this flag means absolutely nothing, quite honestly. It means absolutely nothing. In fact, I'm going to move aside here, 1776, I have this flag because my many times great grandfather fought in the Revolutionary War. And so that's why I have this flag up, and against the British. And let's see here. Blue says, y'all are fake conservatives. Y'all will burn in hell for the hate you have in your heart. Talk out of your ASS all you want. And believe it or not, Blue, I don't use profanity, so I'm not going to repeat what you're saying here. And Franco Bootlicker, you might have missed my earlier comments. I love boots. I love police. And if you handed me a sweaty police boot right now, I just might lick it. Let's see here. But you know what? But either way, I'm not going to keep addressing all of the hateful comments because it doesn't matter to me. I hate the government too. I really do. I hate the government too. I don't like everything Donald Trump does. I still think he's the greatest president we've ever had. I think we are a freer nation under him. But see what conservatives, or sorry, not what liberals and some Democrats don't understand is that we're fighting for them too. But they don't even know it because they're so propagandized. They actually believe that what they're doing out there makes a difference. That it makes a difference. And to some degree it does, because violence truly, like I said earlier, is the answer. Because these people are so violent, we are going to be withdrawing ICE today. And I think that sends a message to everyone that violence is the answer. But we learned that during the George Floyd riots and the Michael Brown riots. And I'm not going to go off on a tangent on that, but that is the truth. We are going to start withdrawing ICE today. It's going to happen. Federal agents are going to be leaving Minnesota in general. But a lot of these folks they're given new orders anyway from their commander, their Antifa commander or whatever group they're working with, to go to Washington, D.C. So that's where we're going to see their next mobilization. And some paid, some not paid. But the fact is I think a lot of us conservatives feel the same way. We don't support the government. While I like Donald Trump, I think it says a lot that a good portion of Congress hates him, and that includes the Republicans in Congress. They hate him. And I'll tell you what, I can't think right now of a single Congress member I support. Maybe Anna Paulina Luna, maybe Mace. I can't stand anyone else because you know what? They're all profiting from us. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. I am all for wiping the slate clean. All those tax dollars you're paying out, all they're doing is they're taking your tax dollars. They're saying that they're funding bunny research over in Iceland. And really what they're doing is they're pocketing that money. They're putting it into an NGO, a non-governmental organization, and they're buying themselves mansions, beautiful cars. Look at Chelsea Clinton, $82 million to Chelsea Clinton. Now, why would Chelsea Clinton get $82 million of your tax dollars? And they're also rolling these tax dollars into funding these protests that are taking place across the country. They're funding, your tax dollars are funding these protests. And you know why? That's because they want to cause chaos and instability within this country. There's nothing more about it than that. And Douglas, you support police, but not the government or the Constitution. Communists fits you better. No, I support the police. And I do absolutely, I just said I'm a conservative constitutionalist. I absolutely do support the Constitution. But at no point was our government ever meant to be the way that it is now. It was never meant for certain individuals, lawmakers in our country, to take money from corporations. Okay, so this corporation wants to put chemicals in your food, so they have a lobbyist go and lobby Congress, and Congress gets a portion of proceeds from that particular food company because they allow them to put chemicals in their food. They put chemicals in the food so they can make more food. And I know they do because I've talked to people who worked at Monsanto who told me that the reason why we use GMOs and we do this and we do that is because we create more food that way. Yes, less nutritious food, but more food to feed the people. And Congress gets kickbacks on that. The government was never set up for Congress to get kickbacks. It was never meant for somebody like Lindsey Graham to sign off on funding Ukraine, and then a portion of the funds that we send to Ukraine ends up in the pockets of Lindsey Graham. That was never meant to be the case. And anyone who is in Congress, who enters Congress for the right reasons, and there's many who enter Congress for the right reasons. I know several of those people. They get in there for the right reasons and they're trying to make a difference, but then they see how the game works and they end up playing the game, because if they don't play the game, they're out. They continue telling themselves, hey, I'm trying to make this work. I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do this, trying to make America a better place. So don't tell me that I don't support the Constitution. The Constitution is not about people in places of power, Democrats or conservatives, taking money out of your pocket. That's not what the government was ever supposed to be. It's not supposed to be the RNC and the DNC. Those are privately owned branches. They're not even part of the government. And let's see here. Oh, Amber, you're a pedo. Who's a pedo? You mean Joe Biden? Because I just want to remind everybody, Joe Biden's daughter, Ashley, remember when we found her diary? And they found her diary, and guess what she said? She said that her father, the reason why she was so involved with drugs and why her life was such a mess is because her father over-sexualized her at a young age by forcing her to take showers with him when she was a teen. I don't remember anyone calling out Joe Biden. Joe Biden was accused by Tara Reid of sexually assaulting her. And I don't hear anybody calling him out. Everybody wants to call Trump out. But Trump has never, I'm just going to remind you guys all again, Trump has never once been charged. He has never once been convicted of any type of sexual assault or being a pedophile. On the other hand, Hunter Biden, when they looked at his phone, in his phone, now my phone says mom. That's what my phone says. When I call my mother, it says mom. And his name for his dad that was entered into his phone was Pedo Peter. I think that tells us all we need to know. All right, guys. So lots of other stuff to talk about. And yeah, there's a lot of bots. I'm trying to block them when I can, but it's hard to block people and talk about this stuff. Let's see here. Mary Cruz says, I am an American and Mexican. And said that, let's see here. And even Mexicans from Mexico said, sorry, I'm having a hard time scrolling with my comments today, but I do want to read your comment. Obama did so much, y'all don't want to talk about, because he's a Democrat, that's why y'all didn't care. That's exactly right. And I played that video of Obama earlier. And Dan, I know you say Trump is a pedo, but as you know, that's just not true. Just not true. In Blue, we don't really care what you say, because you know what? You're not, some people, the mental illness keeps you from making sense of anything we say, and I think I confuse a lot of the liberals when I say I don't support the government. I support Donald Trump because he's the best president we've ever had, because he believes in a free people. However, I don't support the Republicans or Democrats in Congress. I'm anti-Congress, quite honestly, because they are all stealing money from us, the people. And I think that confuses liberals, because they're like, wait a minute, how can you be a conservative, and accept the fact that some Republicans, if not all, in Congress are actually stealing your tax dollars. They're all doing it. And one of these days, that's exactly why Elon Musk, when he was heading the Department of Doge, that's why they dismissed him. That's exactly why. Because you know why? Because Republicans were right in Donald Trump's ear saying, we've got to stop this now. Why did they want to stop it now? Because they knew eventually they would be exposed. That's exactly why. And quite honestly, if we really knew how many people were in our government, whether it's Democrat or Republican, who stole money from you, who stole your tax dollars, this whole country would be in chaos. It would be an absolute madhouse. And let's see here. Somebody said, oh, Andrew, he was found guilty of sexual abuse. No, actually, Andrew, he wasn't. Get your facts straight. No, he absolutely was not found guilty of harming anyone. Not guilty of harming anyone. All right, guys, we have got to move on. I actually have work to do today, so we're going to move on. Some of the other things I want to talk about today, we saw again, we'll be back. Oh, Jamie, I already said, you probably missed my show, that for one, I'm not fat, and two, even if you called me fat, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all. It doesn't matter to me at all. Let's see here. Aw, and JR calls me Quiet Piggy. Doesn't hurt me at all. Doesn't make any difference. I get up in front of the camera every single day looking just like I do, and it doesn't matter. And so, yeah, and Margie, you're right. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just trying to block people as I go. But it's kind of hard to do, but I'll do it after. I'm sure you guys will do a good job, too. Some other things I want to talk about. We've already talked about mental illness quite a bit today. I want to give a little bit of an update on Iran. As you know, the situation with Iran continues. And I really hate it. This is one of the things that I wish that Trump did a little bit differently. I really do. I wish that we would have jumped in when we had the chance. Here we are at an opportunity when the regime, they already have a contingency plan to flee Iran. We had our chance to jump in when we could, and we didn't do it. And I know we're poised. We've got the USS Abraham Lincoln over there ready to go. And we've had troops ready to go for what, 3 weeks now, 4 weeks? And we're not doing anything. And I'm very disappointed that we're not doing anything. These people are out there fighting for their lives. It is because of the United States that these people are running around wearing black burqas and having to cover their hair, wear the hijabs. And here they are rising up. Now, and I know that the United States CIA and Israel have been over there arming these people, giving them power, telling them, hey, rise up against your government, and we're going to step in and we're going to make sure there's a regime change. And then we just drop the ball. Now, why do we drop the ball? I don't know. I know there's a lot of advisors in Trump's ear telling him, we've got to work this out diplomatically. Saudi Arabia is a big factor. They don't want us to conduct any strikes against Iran. They don't want us to be involved in a regime change. Qatar, who I know, Donald Trump does seem to admire the leaders of Qatar. I'm not really sure why necessarily, but I think he's listening to all these different folks and he's trying to make a decision on what we need to do moving forward. And I'll tell you what, and I think the estimates of around 30,000 Iranians being killed is very small. I think there's a lot more than 30,000 Iranians that have been killed during this uprising. And if we don't do something right now, then we're going to show those people that we don't care about them, that we don't care about the Iranian regime and how they're treating these people and the oppression that's taking place in that country. And they're going to even hate us more than they already do because we give them the power to rise up and then we backtrack. We can't do that. We have to do something now. I hope something happens and I hope it happens soon. Now, something I thought was kind of interesting is Zelensky. Now, Zelensky made a statement, which, there's been this back and forth constantly between Ukraine and Russia. We all know about the war and the conflict. I'm not going to get into that mess today. We've talked about it too many times. But now, of course, that's all about Ukraine entering into NATO. Well, now all of a sudden, Zelensky, NATO has maintained for a long time now that they will never allow Ukraine to join NATO. They'll never allow it. Now, Zelensky out of nowhere, in the early morning hours, announced that Ukraine is going to become a member of NATO in 2027. Now, I think that's kind of funny, and I would love to see what Putin's reaction to that is, or Donald Trump's reaction to that. But here's the thing, is NATO even going to exist in 2027. I feel like this is kind of one of those situations where now Zelensky has lied before too about being accepted into NATO, so that's probably what the situation is. But one of the things that I find pretty funny, it kind of reminds me of a private club where there's somebody you don't want to join and they want to join. You know the club's getting ready to break up. So you're like, oh, yeah, we'll accept you in a year, knowing full well that your club will no longer exist. And I feel like that's NATO. You know, Mark Rutte, of course, the chair of NATO, has even said NATO will not exist. Europe will not exist without the United States. And I've got a video here to play of him very quickly.
So when President Trump is doing good stuff, I will praise him. And I don't mind him publishing text messages. And if anyone thinks here, again, that the European Union or Europe as a whole can defend itself without the US, keep on dreaming. You can't. We can't. We need each other. But for Europe, if you really want to go it alone, and those of you who are planning for that, forget that you can ever get there with 5%. It will be 10%. You have to build up your own nuclear capability. That costs billions and billions of euros. You will lose then, in that scenario, you would lose the ultimate guarantor of our freedom, which is the US nuclear umbrella. Good luck.
Yeah, NATO will cease to exist. That's coming. We know that Donald Trump wants to withdraw with NATO. He campaigned on withdrawing from NATO. We conservatives, we want him to withdraw from NATO. You know, as I said yesterday, I've mentioned many times before, part of Trump's strategic initiative for our safety, our national security, is to withdraw from NATO. Those people don't like us. Those people in Europe absolutely do not like us. Those people are not our allies. They're absolutely not. And Donald Trump knows how much they hate him. Those people did every single thing they could to make sure that he did not become president. He knows enough to know who his enemies are. And so therefore, like I said yesterday, our future as America is called the C5, the Core 5. I know there's a lot of new people on the show today, so hopefully you get yourself prepared for the Core 5. We are going to switch. Now, it's going to take a long time. It's not going to happen overnight, but we are going to at some point withdraw from NATO. We're going to become the Core 5, and we are going to be the next superpower of the world. And I'll tell you, we're losing our status as a superpower as long as we're hanging out with the folks over in Europe. They're just taking us down with them. Their countries are all bankrupt. Just like Mark Rutte just said, they have no money. They have no way to make their own nuclear weapons. They need the United States to defend them. Okay, well, we are that friend that said, okay, you people need us, but yet you turn against us at every single corner. We're going to be done with you. And the C5 is like the G7, but it's called the Core 5. And that's going to be the United States. It's going to be Russia. It's going to be China. It's going to be India. And it's going to be Japan. And we are going to be the Core 5. And us together, we are going to be the world's next superpower. And quite honestly, we'll be invincible. Because if you look at BRICS already controls more of the GDP than NATO of the world's GDP. They're already strides ahead of where NATO is. And I'll tell you what, these European countries are going to fall. And we see them falling already. They've done that to themselves. We're not going to let them drag us down with them. So it's going to happen. And Melissa, like I said, it doesn't, I could actually just sit here and just read all the comments and probably entertain myself pretty good. Cody says, forever the Federal Reserve eco-terrorists offer loans to countries, and then when they decline and want to start resource-based economy, and the reserve funds the opposition like ISIS, yeah, exactly, Taliban, Lebanon, Cuba, the Federal Reserve funded every supposed bad guys like Hitler, Stalin, Osama Fidel, and the list goes on. I agree with you, Cody. And I would absolutely say that we have a very bad track record. People want to say, well, why does everybody in the world hate Americans? Gee, I wonder why. And that's under the control, of course, of the Democrat regime. The Democrat Party is a regime. It's not a political party. They actually are a regime. If you look at this in the terms of another country, we are the opposition forces. And we are in power right now. And that means the regime has controlled this country for a very, very long time, many, many decades. Those folks are going to do everything they can to gain power back. And if that means putting people in the street, they would love to start a civil war. Quite honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this whole situation with Alex Pretti was a setup. I really wouldn't. I wouldn't be surprised at all, because that's the type of operations that they're guilty of. And they've done it so many times. I mean, look at the millions of people who died in Iraq at the hands of, guess what? Us Americans. And I don't blame our military. Military was there for the purpose they were told, to be there, to remove weapons of mass destruction. Of course, the government lied to us. They lie to us all the time. We should have never removed Gaddafi from power. That guy was a hero, to his citizens. And yes, it is all about the central banks. It's all about money. You guys know the story. But either way, oh, Cody, I see that Cody has Alex Pretti as his as his profile picture. I wish, Cody, you were here earlier when we were talking about mental illness, because you would have fit right in. Oh man. And all right, guys. Well, it is time for me to end the show. I've got to work today. I've got a lot to do today. As some of you know, I have had some health issues, and today I have to, which is kind of funny. And Barry is threatening your children. Well, good luck with that, because I only have one child, and he's a gun-toting conservative. So good luck with that. I live in a fortress, so good luck with Barry trying to find me. But either way, I'll be happy to report Barry. I hope you guys all have a good day. And Joshua, again, your comments, people, here's the thing with liberals want to do. They think that if they call you fat or ugly or any of these other names, that it's going to make you upset. Their goal is to hurt your feelings. But here's the thing. My feelings don't get hurt. It doesn't matter what you say or what you call me, or you can call me a bootlicker or fat or tell me to go eat some more McDonald's. None of that bothers me at all. That's just not me. I work and I own a security company. I deal with mental illness all the time. I deal with people who like to hurl insults all the time. It doesn't bother me at all, because I can look at somebody and say, yeah, you're mentally ill. And most of the time, the people who hurl these insults, if you take a look at them, they've got like purple hair or blue hair. They've got nose rings. They usually something that looks straight out of the zoo. So I'm not too concerned what any people say. And yes, Caleb, liberals are very stupid. And I actually think it's funny. And no, Thomas, I'm not upset at all. Not even in the slightest. Because you know what? I'll be right back here tomorrow looking just like I do, everything the same. Won't make any difference at all. But I actually enjoy the comments. I think it's funny because, for one, I like that it adds to the comments. Even though my show's not monetized, I like to be able to go back and look at the show and say, gee, I got 500 comments today. And then maybe, guess what? Maybe they will monetize me. The more you guys comment, and the more that Facebook sees there's interaction on the show, maybe they'll finally turn my monetization on after being grounded for so long. So thank you for that. But either way, guys, I have got to run. Oh, thank you, Cody. And I'm perfectly fine. I'm not even slightly concerned with my appearance. But either way, I do have to run. I have to go get an echocardiogram today, part of my health journey that I've been on, and hopefully we'll get down to the bottom of what's going on. But I'll be talking to you guys about it soon. I will be back tomorrow. I know a lot of times here lately I've been called into work. I do have a big assignment I'm working on today, but it's not going to be in the mornings. So I'll have plenty of time to do that. But I will see you guys back tomorrow. I hope all of the mentally ill folks join us again tomorrow. I love to have their comments added into the feed. Thank you for that, for joining the show. I love having new people on. I do hope you guys have a really good day. We've got a lot more to talk about tomorrow. Hopefully Colonel Joe Adams will join us again at some point, maybe this week. If not, we'll have him back on Monday. He's got a big event coming up this week about teaching women self-defense. You can reach out to him at patriots@thewashingtonguard.com. And with all these loonies, I mean, we probably do need some self-defense, because I can guarantee you these mentally ill folks have no problem going after women. No problem at all. All right, guys, we will talk about this again tomorrow. I hope you guys all have a really good day, and I will see you all then.